Hello. Welcome to the Rotten Horror Picture Show, the horror movie podcast where we talk about films off the Rotten Tomatoes 200 Best Horror Films of All Time list. My name is Clay, and with me as always is Amanda. Amanda, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm in my my knit hat, and I'm ready to do business.
Excellent, excellent. It's wintertime. It's Christmas time.
Yes.
And we are headed to Finland.
Boo.
For boo? Would you like to elaborate on that boo?
I mean, not particularly.
Okay. All right. We are doing Rare Exports, which is number 118 on our list. It's from 2010. It has a 90% Rotten Tomatoes score with a 70% audience score. Had you seen this before?
No, I was completely ignorant of this one.
Yeah, this was one for me I had been aware of for a long time. I remember this getting a lot of buzz when it came out. And it was always somewhere on my list, but I just never really got around to it.
Yeah.
I had seen the Santa Claus graphic from the shipping crate at the end.
Oh, yeah.
I had seen that around a lot at the time.
Yeah.
I thought I knew what this was about. And I think I was wrong mostly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I was getting this mixed up with, there was another movie I think that came out relatively around the same time called Monsters, I think.
Okay.
Which was a sort of a low budget movie about monsters, I guess.
Appropriate.
And I guess I thought I guess I was kind of right, because my what I thought this movie was about was like people who hunted Santa Clauses from the from like the place where they originated from, and they were like aliens or something.
Yeah, protecting the world from Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not quite what the movie is, but
that's like a reasonable jump to make based off of the promo material.
Yeah, ballpark anyway.
Yeah.
So why don't we get into it? We'll take a quick break. We'll play the trailer, and then we will talk about what Rare Exports is actually about.
It's the most magical time of the year, when traditions are honored and the youngest among us still believe in the spirit of the season.
We found something else than just plain rocks and dirt.
This mountain is like a giant ice box.
For storing what?
Drill deeper. Bear the dynamite. You have a grave to rob.
Minkälaiset sudet tekee? Hyvää joulua.
Isä! Vetti on viety!
We have Santa Claus. Selitä sille, että meillä on täällä pukki myytävänä.
He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. And he doesn't give up. Rare Exports, A Christmas Tale.
Okay, Rare Exports from 2010. I would like to apologize in advance for my reading of these names, especially to our Patreon subscriber, or Yarpi, who I believe is Finnish.
We
I
both apologize in advance.
Directed by Jalmari Helander, written by Jalmari Helander, Juuso Helander, and Peeter Jakobi. Starring Jorma Tommila and Onni Tommila, who actually the two main characters are actually father and son in real life, which is fun.
That's cool.
Peeter Jakobi, Tommy Kopelar, Auno Jovanen, and lots of butts and penises. Amanda, what happens in Rare Exports?
A young boy named Pietari and his friend Juuso think a secret mountain drilling project near their home in northern Finland has uncovered the tomb of Santa Claus. However, this monstrous, evil Santa, much unlike the cheery Saint Nick of legend. When Pietari's father captures a feral old man in his wolf trap, the man may hold the key to why reindeer are being slaughtered and children are disappearing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, it's like a fairly decent summary.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. Well, Clay, some things you'll find in this movie include butt armor.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Tape this to your butt, Clay.
Yeah. Why did he specifically need butt armor?
It's a vulnerable point on the human body.
I suppose. I guess it's not the first thing you think of, which is,
right.
I guess, why you got to make sure that people don't forget it.
Sure. You'll also find the most disgusting roast I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know what that thing was.
That was gross.
I don't know. He cooked it clearly too long.
I agree with the fact that he annihilated it in his oven. Like that thing should have been reduced to ash. That was not fit for human consumption.
Yes.
Armed children, but otherwise pretty okay parenting.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad for the most part.
Right? Like nothing overtly terrible.
Didn't want his son seeing him attempt to dispose of a human body.
Exactly. Yeah. Tried to keep him away from the explosions in the mountains and the wolf pit.
Yeah.
But, do what you can.
Yeah.
Awful or possibly amazing hair?
Yeah, there was some interesting haircuts in this movie.
There was more than one mullet, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure.
Well, I think not to what's the word I'm looking for here? I guess not to be cliche, but maybe it has something to do with the next thing you're going to point out, I assume.
Well, maybe not the next thing I'm
Okay,
point
well,
out,
another thing you're going to point out.
because the next thing I'm going to point out that this is trash from Return of the Living Dead's actual nightmare.
Yes.
Yeah.
The climax of this movie is Trash's literal nightmare.
Yes.
From
Yeah,
Return of the
actually
Living Dead.
happening. But I have an additional feature for this specific movie, Clay, and it's things you won't find in this movie. Things you won't find in this movie include women.
Not a single
You will
woman.
not find any women, girls, female-looking persons.
Nope.
No women.
I'm going to assume all those reindeer that got killed were all males.
They all looked like they had antlers.
Yeah.
I don't know if female reindeer have antlers, but if they're similar to standard North American deer, then yeah, those were all male reindeer.
It's strange because you get a movie like John Carpenter's The Thing, which doesn't have any women in it, but there's like 5 people in that movie.
And there's no children.
There's no children in it.
Right.
This one has... Apparently, this village is made up entirely of disgruntled single fathers.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the thing this movie taught me is that men in Finland can reproduce without women.
Given their attitudes, I'm just going to say it doesn't surprise me that they, don't have any relationships going on.
I get the vibe that the main character, like his mom maybe died or something.
Yes.
Because they seem very melancholy.
Maybe in Finland, instead of how they have over 55 communities? Do they have communities for widowed hunters?
It's like your wife died, you have to go live in the woods now?
Yeah.
Or is it like, instead of normal childbirth, is this kid like a chest burster?
That's possible.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, speaking of Finland in the winter, let me set the stage for you here. Winter in Finland can certainly be a gloomy time, full of storms and mists. These often extreme conditions have weathered the landscape, leaving behind curiously shaped stones, odd mounds, and clumps of wind-bowed trees, the sort of places in which strange creatures might hide away. And as the days grow darker and the snow falls, some of these beings might emerge from their lairs and into the general world. Such is the basis of Finnish folklore. Now, I'm going to get into maybe why there might not be any women in this movie.
Oh.
For many of the early Norse, Finland was a land of mystery and awe. Blanketed by thick, dark forests and boasting many odd geological features, it often suggested something sinister and magical to its Scandinavian neighbors. Norwegians and Danes especially considered its people strange and sorcerous. Outside of Iceland, some of the so-called black schools which taught sorcery were supposedly based in Finland. Here's the important part. Finnish women were frequently considered to be powerful witches. They were considered by the Norwegians to be extremely proficient in the art of mundklem, which is the stopping of the breath, which could be used to kill somebody, even over a great distance.
This is amazing.
Now you wish you were a Finnish woman.
I know. Teach me.
It's not surprising that, in the popular mind, Finland was also the home of terrible beings and monsters, many of whom meant mankind harm, and who usually made an appearance when the days and nights were dark and gloomy. Many of them too were associated with the landscape itself. That was from Spirits of the Season: Portraits of the Winter Otherworld by Bob Curran and Andy Pacharek, which is a book that I have that's full of all different sorts of winter monsters.
That's an awesome book.
Now I can use it as a write-off. Anyway.
Yay!
But I guess the way I'll shoehorn that into relevance is that this is the creature at the center of this is kind of the turn that we get in the movie is that this is not, well, it's Santa, but not the way it's more Krampus than anything else. It's more of a Krampus figure.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you're using Krampus as like this sort of shorthand of just a Santa who's mean.
Well, I can turn to the Krampus section
you
of
can.
this book
if you
here.
want. The rest of this podcast episode is just going to be Clay reading from this excellent book.
Yeah, I could. It's a truly monstrous creature, half man and half goat, sporting long and curling horns and extremely ugly. I can't say how ugly this creature was in the movie because we don't see his face. But
gotcha. I thought
large curling horns.
Yep.
Krampus.
I thought you were talking about the old man.
Oh no, those are more Santa-esque.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the setup of the movie is the two little boys are sneaking into the mining operation.
Mm-hmm.
They hear some stuff that they shouldn't. They don't tell any of the adults. And then on Christmas, a creepy old man appears. And the assumption becomes that he is like an evil version of Santa.
Yes.
Until later on when they find out that he is not. He is an elf.
Right.
And that the giant creature with giant horns is Santa.
Yes.
That's the twist.
Yeah, it's an interesting movie. It's I am a huge fan of Christmas monsters. I think we probably talked about this last year, or the year before when we did our Christmas horror movie.
Yes.
But I love Christmas horror movies, and I love the tradition of different Yuletide monsters and creatures, especially from Europe. Well, I mean, especially America doesn't have that shit. Because we just steal things from everybody else.
Yep.
But yeah, I've always loved that stuff. So the idea of this movie, I really like.
Yeah. No, conceptually, this is a great. I mean, the setting, like, here was my thing with this movie is everything on paper sounds right.
Yeah.
But then the actual execution left me feeling a little let down.
Yeah, I don't know what's missing from it, but my takeaway at the end of it was that was fun, but I feel like it would have been a better short. I think the problem might be there's too much for a short, but maybe not enough for a full movie.
Yeah. I think that's definitely one way of looking at it. I was talking to Greg earlier, and he kind of, I'd been thinking about this, and then he kind of reaffirmed for me what I was thinking, which was like, this movie feels like it's 2 steps away from being a kids movie, or like
Sure.
a movie more targeted at kids, where it can be like scary but also exciting and like a kid hero. Like this feels almost like Krampus Home Alone, like
Sure.
tonally, not action wise.
Which,
but like,
have you seen the Krampus movie?
no.
We should watch that. Well, we're out of Christmas movies on the list, so we should watch
There we
Krampus
go.
next year. But
Next year.
Krampus Home Alone is
Krampus.
sort of the movie Krampus, yeah.
But you know what? Like, and I realized that I think he's right that like this movie kind of walked in a weird line in between like being almost kid friendly and then being slightly too dark for that, but not dark enough to be really more of a adult horror movie.
Yeah, it occupies a weird space because it's kind of a space you don't really get much anymore, which is kind of the Gremlins space.
Yes.
Where Gremlins.
Yes, that's a perfect example where it's like not actually kid friendly, but like you might watch it when you're a kid and be fine.
Yeah,
or grow up to be us.
Gremlins in the Mind is a lot smoother, or has the edges sanded off a lot more than Gremlins actually does, because the Gremlins is actually pretty intense and kind of violent and scary.
Right. But it's like almost like if you're young enough when you first see it, you can sort of be oblivious enough to not notice some of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this one, I think you're right. I think this kind of occupies the same space. The only I think maybe the old man nudity might take away from it being a kid's movie.
Greg was like, all you needed to do was give all those old men loincloths and this would have been fine.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I was like, more or less.
But yeah, it does have that kind of like the kind of disconnected sort of don't worry about it plot that a lot of movies aimed at kids kind of have, like where I don't really know what the evil mining corporation is looking for outside of
with their Indiana Jones style.
What is their
villain
plan once they get the Santa monster?
Yeah, why do they? That was one of my questions where I was like, why do they want this creature? Like, do they?
I mean,
think
who
it's
wouldn't?
I mean, I don't want it alive.
Right.
I can't control that thing. I can't even control, like, your dog doesn't even listen to me.
That's true.
He's no respect for me.
Yeah, he listens to no man.
No woman. I'm not allowed in Finland. But yeah, it does have that sort of, like, feel of, like, happening in a world where you don't need to make things make logical sense.
Yeah.
Like things don't need to fit together.
Yeah. Because like
that
stuff plus the way it ends, I actually weirdly enough, a friend of mine who I talk to relatively frequently, I asked her how her evening was. She's like, oh, it was good. I watched Rare Exports last night. Like,
funny.
Oh, well, that's funny. I watched the same thing. Yeah. And I asked her what she thought of it, and she said, I thought it felt like it was it suddenly turned into a different movie at the end.
Yeah.
And it kind of does run that way a bit, where there's a moment where I thought the movie was over, where after they trap the naked men, they kind of have this hero shot with all of the main characters, and then it just sort of like fades to black.
Yes,
I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean,
right? They stopped the threat. They blew up Santa Monster. They trapped all the naked men.
And the weird thing about it is they end with these lines. So earlier in the film, these guys are reindeer hunters, I suppose, or at least they
that is part of their livelihood.
Part of their livelihood is selling reindeer carcasses, and so they're trying to trap. And there's a series of dialogue where they're doing the math about how much money they would get from 350 reindeer or something like that, and they all end up slaughtered. So their livelihood is gone. Blah 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 blah. They don't have any money. And at the end of the movie, they capture all of these elves,
we'll just call them elves for the sake of simplicity.
And then, like before it fades to black, they have this line where where they do the math on how much 350 elves would be worth.
Yeah, like how much would 350 mall Santas get you? I guess.
Because then, so they fade to black, and I was like, oh, that's a really weird way to end this.
I was like, are they
going to
slaughter these?
Yeah, I don't know.
Men and pretend that it's reindeer meat and just be like, no, it's fine.
Yeah, I have no idea. I thought that was a really odd way to end it.
Does this movie end in cannibalism?
And then it fades back up, and they've created this like training system to turn these elves into Santa Clauses.
Yes.
Who they then ship out across the world.
Yes, they put a man in a box
Which,
and
as I said,
mail him to Dubai or wherever.
as I mentioned to my friend, this movie is the heartwarming story about a father and son starting a human trafficking ring.
Yeah.
But like that end
Yes.
bit that pays off the name of the movie, I was just like this. So where are they sending them? Like, what is the purpose? Are they mall Santas? Are they something else? It was one of those things where it confused me. But then I was like, I don't know. Do I really need an answer? That's kind of a fun way to end a movie. But then I was like,
Yeah.
well, I don't know, because like that's not. I don't know what story you're telling at that point. I
Yeah.
understand that this family, the reindeers are dead, so they don't have the money, and then the money is supplemented because they have this idea to start this human trafficking ring or Santa trafficking ring.
Yeah.
But I don't understand what they're doing with it, so I don't know if it's as clever as it seems. Am I overthinking this?
Well, I don't know. I think part of the problem is that it feels very, like we were saying, like tonally feels very different. Like, I feel like the very beginning of this movie where you see sort of the mining company and what they're doing, and then the very end of this movie maybe kind of happen in the same world,
Mm-hmm.
and then everything in between is like a different vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, yes, these people who work really, really hard and have difficult lives and like are just trying their best to survive in a relatively hostile environment and don't get to be around any women, so they all have mullets. Like, can't roast a food, can only bake gingerbread. Like, it's just, it's a lot like, I don't know. It's a weird way to end that movie, and yeah, it feels like they ended it that way because that was the cool concept they kind of came up with.
Right.
Was like, oh, wouldn't it be awesome if at the end, they...
It feels like to me the concept of this movie was so, because one of the things it says is based on an original idea by the director and his brother. It feels a little bit to me like maybe that original concept was, wouldn't it be crazy if all of the Santas that you see were actually Santas caught in the wild and then sent out, and then it's like the long form exploration of that, but you're not getting to that point until the last 5 seconds of the movie, so I don't really know if it lands.
Right. And I almost feel like...
Which is why I think it would be a great short. Because you can
Yeah.
kind of... I don't know, whatever.
But I think you could have done this movie in several different ways and maybe like committed to an idea or a direction harder and gotten more out of it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, I keep thinking, like, all right, you're in northern Finland, which I hope our Finnish listener corrects me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that means that in the winter time, your days are very short and that there's a lot of darkness.
Probably,
so they live pretty far from any major towns. The weather is harsh. It's probably very cold and dark. You could have done a lot more with just them out in the woods at night. And it would have been a lot scarier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if they were hearing noises out around the house and it turned out to be the creepy elves.
Yeah.
Or eventually, like, what I wanted to happen was that for some reason they were forced to go down into the pit.
Oh, sure.
Like,
yeah.
I feel like these are, because I'm sure part of the thing with this movie was budget constraints. I don't imagine it was a very high budget movie, but like, I feel like a bunch of that stuff you could do for pretty cheap. And I just kind of wanted it to lean in a little bit more into how harsh the environment was and how unknown these creatures were, and a little less into like interpersonal squabbling and figuring out which of the trio of adults speaks English so he can say, yes, we are men, let's do business.
Yes, which is, I'm going to use that in all my negotiations from now on. All my contract negotiations will start with that.
Yes.
You should have your husband do that.
Oh my God, he would.
Yeah, I felt like you could see the budget a bit in this.
Yeah. Which there's nothing, I mean...
there's nothing wrong. They actually, I mean, for what they do, like, there's a lot of special effects shots at the end of this movie that look really good.
Yeah.
Like, all of the helicopter stuff looks good.
Yeah.
The big monster. Well, we never see the actual monster.
That's
but
another thing I kind of wish
I
they
know.
had
I was a little
done.
bummed that you don't get to see the monster.
I would prefer that they didn't get all the cool helicopter stuff in there and they spent all that money on, like, something of a monster.
Yeah,
you know,
like in Black Friday when the giant chicken lady monster busts out through the top of the mall. Which I just storyboarded that, no big deal. But where you have all the money put into the special effects and stuff, I felt like you really felt it in the fact that there's like 6 people in this movie
and like 2 sets.
Yeah, and like there's a big part of it is that these elves are stealing the children from the town,
right?
Which you find out is like a lot of children. But you have no sense of how many people are in the surrounding area where these guys live.
Right, because you're only ever on Pietari's and his father's, like, I don't know, homestead, I want to call it.
Yeah. There's them, there's the guy in the Santa suit and his son.
Yes.
And then there's the third guy who I can't remember if he has a kid or not.
I think the guy in the Santa suit does not have a kid.
Oh, it's the other guy.
I think it's the other guy who speaks English.
Okay.
I think Juuso is his son.
I see. And aside from that, there's, for people you see through most of the movie, there's in the town anyway, there's a cop.
Yeah.
And I think that might be it.
Yeah, and then there's the mining company people.
Yeah, who you see very briefly.
Right.
So
right.
you don't get a great sense of the world. But
again, I think that would be fine had there been even just 1 or 2 scenes of them, just again like out in the woods, kind of like you get like at the very beginning you get them out on the snowmobiles, and hunting the reindeer, and then other than that it's just kind of them like, well, we're here now. Well, now we're here.
Yeah.
Now we're in a helicopter.
Yeah.
Like I was hoping there was going to be a scene where they had to be on the snowmobiles trying to outrun the monster.
Oh, sure.
And I was like, that'll be cool.
Yeah.
No.
I thought the stuff, I think there's a lot more fun stuff that they could have done that they kind of leave on the table. Like you get a little bit of it. Like I really liked the elf guy kind of coming back to life by smelling the gingerbread cookies.
Yes. Yeah.
Like
I
thought
that
the stuff
was funny. That was like genuinely like, it was clever. This is going to sound like an insult. It was like clever in a dumb way, and that's why it was funny.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like it played perfectly into the sort of like, we're going to tie all these Christmas traditions together.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, of course they're obsessed with gingerbread and they can smell children when they're nearby.
Yeah. I think they could have done more with that stuff. I liked the whole sequence inside the elf guy in the slaughterhouse.
Yeah, and
that stuff was really cool.
Very creepy, man.
Great set too. That slaughterhouse set was really, really nice.
Yeah, that was, but like when they wrap him up and they chain him and they kind of string him up and he's just swinging there staring at them. I was like, that man's terrifying.
Yeah.
You could have done. It would have taken just a nudge in a couple spots to make him even scarier, I think. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like it never. Yeah, like I feel like this movie didn't really want to be a horror movie. It maybe kind of wanted to be more of like an action-y movie.
Yeah, I would
like an adventure movie. I don't know.
I would. I think there's a it's worth talking about whether or not this would be a horror movie at all.
Yeah, I mean we usually do that at the end.
Right, we'll get there.
Jump us over.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea that leaves a lot on the table.
Yeah.
Like even as far as the kid and his dad go,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like they didn't quite give me enough to really care about that stuff.
It was getting close for me.
Yeah.
And then everything sort of pivots once the elf falls in the wolf pit.
Yeah, because like, you get to the end of this and you have the kid being the hero and, he's possibly going to sacrifice himself and he's saying to the guy flying the helicopter, tell my dad what I did. Like, I was like, this feels like it should be paying off some sort of larger emotional thing, and I don't really feel like it is.
Yeah, I feel like I would have liked a scene where maybe like so gonna take a step back and then get back into this. One thing I really loved were the child effigies.
Yeah, those are cool.
Those things are awesome. So I'm all for like the moments where they find a couple of those and it's like, oh shit, that thing is scary. I would have liked to see if maybe Pietari had kind of maybe snuck out while the adults were in the barn slaughterhouse shed thing dealing with the elf to try and go find Juuso then. Like try and go find him then and like maybe goes to his house and sees him getting kidnapped. Like I feel like, you know, maybe if there had been a moment where he saw his friend getting kidnapped and he hid. You know what I mean? Like he was too scared and so he hid and so he couldn't help him and he didn't save him. And then you'd have the ending scene and it could be like a redemption thing where it was like, I lied to my dad about going to the mountain and then I was too scared to help my friend.
Yeah.
Like I've been making these kind of cowardly choices throughout the movie and like now I'm ready to sort of like grow up and take responsibility and like do something about it. Like I feel like that would have been a little more of an arc.
Yeah, because he never feels like he's what's the word? He never feel like it. Having him go from being very immature to doing something more mature like that, I feel like makes sense. But he's not really positioned in a way where he's. I mean, he is immature. Other people treat him that way. And I mean, maybe that's part of it, but like, I don't think he sees himself that way or feels that way because he's up there looking out the window. That's the other thing. Why is he afraid of Santa in the first place? Like, I don't get really any. I mean, he's read a lot of magic books about Santa, I guess.
Well, even
that paint him as a scary figure.
Yeah.
Maybe Finnish Santa Claus in general is meant to be more of a Krampus type.
But so here's the thing. I rewatched the beginning of the movie tonight because I felt like I had sort of missed something in the exchanges between people early on. Like I feel like maybe I wasn't fully paying attention or I don't know. So I rewatched it and when they come down from the mountain, he says to Juuso, do you think Santa's buried there? Do you think Santa's dead? And he seems very upset about that. And Juuso is kind of like, oh, you baby, you still believe in Santa Claus? And then Pietari says like, oh, wait, they were lying to us? And he goes, no, they were lying to you. Like, so pretty much like that's the moment. If I'm interpreting everything correctly, like he believed in Santa up until then. And then Juuso is kind of telling him Santa's not real. And then he goes home and he looks through all his magic books about Santa.
Oh.
And that's when he goes from like, if you look at the little advent calendar he has, he's opened all the other doors on it.
Right.
And then when it gets to the 24th, he tries to like staple it shut.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like before that, he didn't seem scared.
Yeah.
So it's weird.
It's a little bit
hard
to track. I guess the thing about the ending too is maybe it's just supposed to be him because he feels responsible for the reindeer getting killed and everything. But I mean, at that point, he knows that's not his fault. But
well, I think he feels responsible because they went up to the mountain and they had cut the hole in the fence.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the way the elves got through.
Yeah, they were gonna get over that fence either way.
I mean, I agree, but kid logic.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I don't understand why at the beginning he thinks Santa might be dead at all.
Yeah, I wasn't tracking some of that kind of scene setting mythology stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's like overall, it's like I think it's pretty fun. I think it works. Like it's I think it's what we're talking about is if you can not really care about that.
Oh yeah.
Then I think it works pretty well.
No, if you're just in it for sort of like a fun and occasionally slightly creepy Christmas movie, this definitely does the job.
Yeah,
and there are some great moments in it.
And I think the kid is pretty good.
Oh yeah.
You know, he's a good character. And I do actually think the relationship with him and his dad is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And pretty well drawn for as little as they give you.
The dad especially, I feel like. Yeah. Like I feel like they do a lot with him. You can figure out pretty quickly what type of person he is from the way he treats his son. Like they don't need to have a lot of conversations where it's like, you know, you've been different since your wife died.
Right, yeah.
And he's just like, I just don't have it in me anymore. I only keep going for Pietari. Like,
Right.
they don't need to do all of that. You can kind of see it in the fact that he's trying to, like, kind of do and be everything for this kid, but he also is sort of impatient with him at times, which makes sense, because, like, kids are great, but kids can be annoying.
True. Yeah, I really liked the scene, the gingerbread scene.
Yeah.
Because he is being annoyed,
Mm-hmm.
but he goes out of his way to say that it's not Pietari's fault.
Yes.
You know, like he's just got to, and in a way that didn't feel fake to me. Like
Yeah.
it felt like he was a dad just who is obviously dealing with a lot,
Mm-hmm.
who is just trying to reassure his son that this is not your fault,
Right.
but I'm in a shitty mood.
And also, he seems like he's not supposed to be the kind of man who's good at that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he seems like he's not supposed to be very good at expressing his feelings. And that's where part of the tension kind of comes from between them, but also I think part of the believability.
Yeah.
Because there's never really a moment where he breaks character and is kind of like, I love you more than everything and I would do anything for,
Right.
like, they don't need to do a big dramatic moment like that. I think the way they do it at the very end is really effective,
Mm-hmm.
where the kid closes his eyes and just kind of whispers like dad or whatever because he thinks he's about to be killed by all the naked old men.
Mm-hmm.
And instead his dad comes and saves him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, they don't need to have some big moment where it was like, I'm sorry I did whatever and I'm sorry about this and your mother would be so
Right,
proud of you.
yeah.
It's just like, no, he's just there when his kid needs him. He just does the good dad thing.
Yeah. And I am glad that they don't get too sappy with that stuff.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely a plus.
And, you know, if there were women in this movie, it just would have been way too sappy.
They just would have been crying
God.
and like nail polish and
Just talking about cooking the whole time.
just everyone would be like,
I'll tell you
me
though,
how you feel.
that roast would have come out perfect.
Yeah.
Although the father does make apparently very good gingerbread cookies.
I mean,
so-
those elves went nuts for it.
Yeah,
It was
no-
like crack to them.
See, no need for women.
I'll just phase myself out. It's been real, folks. Goodbye and good night.
I'm going to replace you with a gun.
There's not much difference.
Yeah, what did you think of the what did you think of the elves? The conceptualizing of the skinny, weird, long bearded quote unquote elves.
I thought they were great.
Yeah.
I was actually all for it. If you notice, like, most of my sort of like, here's what I wish I had seen involves more of the elves being terrifying in the woods. Because I thought that was actually really effective, because the one thing that the elves in the end of this movie did do is sort of, in my opinion, it really, really makes you think about how creepy it is that we in America and maybe other parts of the Western world, I'll admit I do not know, but the concept of like a mall Santa and all of that, how creepy is that when you really think about it? That you go and you put your small child on the lap of a strange man and you let this strange man just sort of say whatever he wants to your kid.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, is it really that much different than going to Disney World and letting your kid talk to Cinderella? I mean, there's a little less booze on her breath probably, but
I think it's different in that, at least nowadays, shit like Disney World is locked down.
True.
Like, they are highly regulated.
That's true.
All of those characters come with like professional handlers.
Yeah.
Where if somebody says or does something, it's just not gonna happen. But like, I remember even being a little kid and thinking that like mall Santas were creepy. Because it was just like, I don't know this man. Why
Right.
are you like? He's putting his arm around me. I don't like this. So I think the elves, they kind of, in my mind at least, sort of highlight that inherent creepiness. And I do think they play into the sort of like, you know, there's just something frightening about a human figure that does not give you anything back.
Sure.
Like they don't
Sure.
emote, they don't talk, they don't make any sound.
Mhm.
And that's pretty scary. So I liked how they did that. I liked that they weren't like giggling and maniacal. Do you know what I mean? Like I liked that they were just sort of like silent and staring and then like sudden motion in attack. I thought that was well done.
Do you think that this story would have, and again, this is me just trying to reconcile the ending here. Do you think this movie the story would have made better sense if it took place in like 1902 or something, where before the prevalence of Santas everywhere, so you get to the end and then it's like, oh, this is the origin of why there are Santas everywhere, is because these guys caught these Santas and
made a business out of them and started shipping them all over the world.
Much more expensive movie because, you know.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, what does a period piece in the Finnish wilderness look like?
You wouldn't have even had to go back that far. I think you could have set this in 1972.
Yeah. Yeah.
And had a similar effect because, like, I don't actually know if this concept of sort of like Rent a Santa was that big back then. Maybe it was.
Yeah, I
but
was
you
thinking.
Could make more of an argument for it.
Yeah, I was thinking because they directly reference the Coca-Cola Santa, which I think is the 30s. I think Coke started doing that.
Okay.
Is that true?
We can find out.
All right, I'm gonna look that up.
I was gonna say we can race on our devices.
I should know this because I did watch The Foods That Made America, and there was one that was all about Coca-Cola. 1920s. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Coca-Cola began its Christmas advertising in the 20s with shopping-related ads in magazines like the Saturday Evening Post. The first Santa ads used a strict-looking clause in the vein of Thomas Nast. In 1930, artist Fred Misen painted a department store Santa in a crowd drinking a bottle of Coke. So I guess that means that there were department store Santas as far back as the 20s or the 30s. Yeah.
All right.
But you know what I mean, though? Like I'm not sure what question. It feels like they're trying to answer a question with this movie, but I don't know what the question is.
I don't know if I feel the same way. I feel like answering a question is a strong claim.
I just I'm like speaking purely by the ending. The way that things play out at the ending. I'm like, I'm just not totally sure. Like if the
question was like, do you ever wonder where all those mall Santas came from?
Yeah.
Here's the answer.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But again, I think I might be overthinking it. But
I think you might be overthinking it a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it was probably just like, hey, isn't this a cool idea? We should do something
I think
with
the
that.
thing that's bothering me about it is like, I think this movie is actually plotted really well. Like the writing, I think, is pretty strong as far as like, you know, setup and payoff and stuff.
Sure.
So when you get to this ending, I feel like this ending isn't as tight as the rest of it. Or at least it doesn't fit to the same puzzle as the rest of it does. Because, like, in theory, replacing the money lost by the dead reindeer with human trafficking makes sense as far as, like,
You heard it here first, folks. Clay McCormick in favor of human trafficking.
Only if it's because the reindeer are dead.
Got it.
As long as the reindeer are alive, no human trafficking.
Okay.
But once they're dead, everything goes.
It's Mad Max time.
Yes. But you know what I mean? It's like that makes sense. Like, okay, I can see what they're doing. That makes sense. You know, there's a problem they have at the beginning. This is how they solve it.
Sure.
But then, like, the way that they solve it is ultimately in that last scene is what's like making me short circuit a little bit.
Yeah.
Not that it's not fun. Because, you know, it's a fun little tag at the end and, you know, and whatnot. But I don't know. It just, there's a disconnect in that final scene for me that doesn't quite land.
Yeah. No, I can see that because, like we were saying, aside from the beginning of the movie where it's sort of like, what is this mining company doing and what do they want with the Santa monster?
Yeah.
Everything else in this movie is pretty, you know, quotidian. Like, the characters kind of just want to do... Like, this is what we do every day. Like, dad's, butchers pigs, or
quotidian, of course, being the quotidius, the most boring of the Greek philosophers. Actually, I have no idea what that word means.
Really? Quotidian is like small and sort of just routine.
Sure.
And it is kind of like boring day-to-day stuff.
I'm sorry, quotidius, the most basic.
Yes.
Of the Greek philosophers.
Greek philosophers. But yeah, we have like a lot of like home scenes.
Sure, yeah.
We have a lot of just kind of like puttering around the kitchen moments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so then to end it with like helicopter flying, children in burlap sacks, and explosions, and then human trafficking, it does kind of ramp it up real fast.
Yeah, like I'm surprised. Like I think kind of what you were saying that I think we were both kind of dancing around this. Is that I'm surprised they don't do more Santa business. Like the kid is staring at. I thought there was going to be a whole big deal with him falling asleep and his keys not falling in the thing to wake him up because it catches on his sweater. So I thought we were going to get like, the Santa creature is going to come up onto the house.
Yeah.
And there was going to be that bit where he's like, looking around the house with the gun out, whatever.
I think that's kind of what I was asking for with like more of the elves in the woods stalking people.
Yeah, exactly.
Please.
Yes, yeah.
Was just like I wanted more interaction, and I think I wanted more for Pietari to do. Like he spends a good chunk of this movie kind of just following the adults around and then sitting in the house trying to call other children.
Yeah.
It like takes him off the board really suddenly, where we start and end with him being like so important to the action that it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I laughed every time they had their friend be the English translator.
Yes.
Every word that came out of his mouth was hilarious.
Yes.
When they're telling him, they say when they have the elf hostage and they're kind of like, and he starts getting aggressive and they're like, tell him to lay down, like tell him to get down on the ground, tell him to get down. And in the subtitles, it's all like very normal and like, yes, like tell him to get down on the ground and stop. And when he starts yelling in English, he just yells, down, boy, down with you.
Yes, we are men. Let's debate.
Let's do business.
Let's do business. Yeah. Did you like it overall? What's your overall? Where do you come down on it?
I mean, I thought it was cute.
Yeah.
Like I thought the concept was fun. I think it's just missing too much for me.
Yeah. I'm curious. Because this, I think, now that I'm thinking back to like when this movie came out, I feel like this falls in the same category as the way people reacted to like Attack the Block, which is another one that people were like, man, that movie is amazing. They love it. And then I've watched it twice and I didn't care for it.
I know. I
time.
remember you not liking it.
And so I'm like, what is the... Like, I agree. It was cute. I think it was fairly clever. I think it was fun.
Yeah, I think when you're in the season, it's fun to watch.
I think it's nice because there are not quite as many...
Women?
Well, yeah. There's not quite as many Christmas action or horror movies, I guess. So, like... I don't know, I'm probably wrong about that. There's probably just as many as
I think of the ones on offer, this is actually a pretty good quality one.
And I think also because it is so different. Like it is such a unique concept, and it's not just Die Hard in a mall in December or something. Not that you need to remake Die Hard to make it be more Christmassy, but so I think that is a big part of it, where it's something new.
Yeah.
Like I could see this being something that people watch every Christmas just because it is novel. It's like, oh, that hits a vein that these other things don't.
Yeah. I guess for me, I wish they had, because this is only a 90-ish minute movie.
Yeah, it's short.
It's pretty short. Yeah. I wish they had used some of their time to flesh out a little bit more of like the rules around the elves, because there seems to be a set of rules. Do you know what I mean? Like when that guy was like, we need to put our weapons down and be quiet and smile because otherwise something bad's going to happen. And it's like,
yeah. And even the kid knowing what to do at the end
right,
has no explanation except that he read a bunch of books on Santa, which
and he
which
sort
they
of,
never directly say that's why.
No, and he sort of comes to his dad at one point and is like, "You need to give me a smack."
Right.
He's like, "Because I've been naughty, I need a smack. And then if I tell you what I've done and you give me a smack, I won't be naughty anymore. And then I'll be safe," I guess is the conclusion. But then I'm kind of like, does that mean that all the kids in this whole town are bad?
Yeah, they all got their mothers killed. Every single mother died in childbirth, and it's their fault.
Oh, it's a much sadder movie now. But no, I mean, I guess I just wanted more from this one.
Yeah.
Like,
another reason why, if they said it like in the early 1900s, all the women, they were just hysterical, and they were shipped off to the sanitarium.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd pretend to be hysterical to get shipped out of there, too. Please send me away, maybe somewhere where it's not dark all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I cut you off with that.
No. I guess, I didn't hate the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even say I disliked it, but, like, I don't think I would feel any strong pull to watch it again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
would I watch it again? Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be averse to it, but I don't know if I would seek it out.
If it were on in the background at a Christmas party or something, I'd be like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. I recently had an interesting experience. I went to the movies. I saw The Menu.
Oh, how was that?
Well, I'll tell you. I had an interesting experience because my feeling coming out of the movie was that was good, but I didn't like it. Like I've
done that to you at least once. I feel like at least one of my wild cards got you in that way.
Yeah, it was just like I could watch it and I could recognize, like, okay, this is good. It's well made.
Mm-hmm.
Ralph Fiennes, always amazing.
Yeah.
It's very cleverly constructed, but I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
It was like I think I've realized I don't like movies about food. And like food culture.
Interesting.
I'm not sure why, but and I know this movie is supposed to be a satire of that stuff.
Yeah.
But even though it was a
Something was grating.
I found myself going like, I fucking hate all these people, and I don't care about it. And I know this is funny on some level, but I just don't care enough to it's.
Yeah.
So many times when I watch movies with Caitlin, the ones that she doesn't like, I'll be like, oh, why didn't you like that? And she'll go like, well, because I get it. It was 90 minutes, but I get the joke. It's fine. But there was 90 minutes of that, and I just don't care. And that's kind of how I felt about The Menu. It was like, I get it, I just don't really care.
Yeah, I can understand that, and I can understand the feeling of like sometimes you're watching a movie or a TV show and everyone in it sucks, but not enough for it to be like you can enjoy how much they suck. Mm-hmm. It's more just like, oh, I hate these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because it is a movie where I haven't really had this feeling that often where I was like, yeah, I understand, like it's good. It's a well-made movie. I just didn't like it.
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't need 2 hours of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would go that far with this one. Because I did like it. I did enjoy it, but I do feel like it's a bit of a missed opportunity.
Yes.
To do some more fun stuff.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the last question is this even a horror movie?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of grappling with that myself because I feel like it has on paper all of the elements that you'd be like, yes, obviously. There's a creature that's been put in an ice block and buried in a mountain that when it is released wants to just like fucking murder everybody, and it's some supernatural beast. Mm-hmm. And they're creepy elf men that are stalking and stealing children and making weird effigies and leaving them in their place. Sounds like a horror movie.
Yeah.
But then when you watch this, it's sort of like style-wise and tone-wise doesn't really match up to that.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have to say yes, just because it has enough trappings of the genre. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I would probably quote my favorite line from The Simpsons, which is short answer yes with an if, long answer no with a but.
That's a great line.
And it's like, I think it's kind of straddling the line where it does have horror elements in it. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's particularly scary.
No, I don't think so either.
I think it could be, is the thing.
Yes.
But it's not. But
right.
it very easily could be. Like, there's
That's
a lot
my main
of
complaint. If you want to boil down what I've been saying over the last 50-ish minutes into something much clearer and simpler, is that like this could have been scarier, and I wish it had been.
Yeah, because like especially because you get such of the feeling of it is very reminiscent of like The Thing.
Yes.
And
yeah.
there's,
like a cold, barren landscape.
Yeah, the isolation,
a limited group of
stuff,
people.
all
something
men.
is. Yeah. Something is stalking them or attacking them, or there's some unknown creature in their midst.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe you could probably make an argument that the fact that they don't do that is actually more novel. That they don't just turn it into a creature stalking people movie.
Yeah,
but I think the idea is big enough that you can still do some of that stuff and not have it feel one note.
Right.
So yeah, I would kind of say. How do you feel about its placement on the list? It is number 118.
I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't put it on the list.
I don't think I put it on the list either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Top 200 horror movies of all time.
Yeah.
That's still the name of this list, right?
As far as I know.
I mean, in that case,
it better be, because I'm not learning a new introduction.
I mean, I think you could take, 90% of the wild cards we've done, and I'd probably say like one of our wild cards versus this. I'd probably pick whichever wild card you threw me, except maybe not the last one that I chose, because I don't think that one's quite a horror movie.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I don't think I would put it on the list.
Yeah.
That's another thing. There's shockingly few, and maybe not that shocking because Christmas, I don't know, but there's shockingly few Christmas movies on this list. There's only this one, Better Watch Out, and Black Christmas. And even Black Christmas was like struggling to stay on the list.
I was gonna say, and it should be on the list.
Should be like in the top
25. Agree.
But
definite agree.
And so I'm kind of surprised Krampus isn't on here, because that was a pretty solid hit, I think. Is Gremlins on the list?
I don't think so. I feel like I searched it a while back and it wasn't.
Gremlins is not. Gremlins would be a good one.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a Christmas movie to put on this list. Jack Frost, about the serial killing snowman. No, that's a terrible movie. Maybe there's just not that many good Christmas horror movies.
I mean, that's definitely part of it. I just don't think, if we're talking strictly, because I always come back to like the very literal interpretation of what this list is called.
Sure.
Like, if this is supposed to be the 200 best, however you want to define best, horror movies of all time, even if we're talking, well, there has to be at least one Christmas horror movie on there. Either of the two we've done already in years past are much better than this. I mean, Black Christmas is amazing, and Better Watch Out was like much more of a horror movie than this one.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for Rare Exports.
Are you ready for the Yule Cat to come and get you?
Yes. What is the Yule Cat? It's a giant cat, right?
Yes.
Is it? I don't think the Yule Cat is in my book.
Where's
the Yule Cat from?
I don't remember, but the Yule Cat is one that I think it comes to town, and if it encounters a child who did not get new clothes for Christmas, it eats them.
Well, that's not on them. That's on the parents.
Yeah, but the
That's
kid
not
gets
fair.
eaten for it. Or what about the Mary Louid?
The Mary Louid?
Yeah.
She was a gymnast in the 80s, right?
Yeah. No, it is it's when some people take a horse skull.
Oh,
and
yes,
they kind of
I know that one.
create a whole puppet almost that they are underneath and operate, and they will come and sing at your door. And if you can't win in a karaoke sing-off with them, making up your own verses, then you have to let everyone who's running the Mary Louid come into your house and give them food and alcohol.
That sounds like my kind of monster. I think
Right?
that's
Isn't
a
that
monster
fun?
that I would make up.
Yeah.
I think
just Clay with a horse skull
it
singing Billy Joel outside your door.
The Mary Louid is in this book.
Yay!
There's some cool monsters in this book. There's the Lucy, which is very cool looking.
Ooh!
It's like
oh man, if I had any talent in the world, that would be my Halloween costume.
It's a creepy lady with a bunch of candles on her head.
That sounds like me, just with candles on my head.
with a chalice with 2 eyeballs in it, which is pretty fun.
I'm holding mine right now.
There's a little Santa guy called the Dead Marots. I'm not sure where that guy's from. There's the Mahaha.
What's the Mahaha?
Looks like it's Canadian.
Is that it? Is it just wearing like a weird hat and a?
No, it's pretty freaky looking. It's like a.
Ooh, it's like a Wendigo.
Yeah, no supernatural creature's name is so representative of the cry that it makes than the Mahaha, as it is suggestive of an evil or crazy laugh, and indeed that is the sound that the creature utters. It is no doubt exceptionally chilling to hear such an echoing cry ring out as one crouches by the fire somewhere in the depths of a gloomy forest or in the cold of an Arctic night. And when the Mahaha is on the prowl, knowing that it will kill someone by ripping him or her to pieces with its long and broken fingernails.
Wow.
And all the while, its insane laughter will echo in the victim's ears.
I think I'm married to the Mahaha.
Belsnickel, that's a classic.
Ooh, yes.
Baba Yaga, that's a good one.
What a hero.
Has there ever been a Baba Yaga movie? That feels like a slam dunk. I'm surprised they haven't done that.
I feel like I remember hearing about something fairly recently, but I don't know. I don't remember.
There's the Neon, which is a Chinese monster.
Oh.
Which is kind of like a big dog with horns.
Cool.
It's pretty fun. Anyway, I could go down and just read you stories from this book the whole time. But
that's what we're gonna do when we sign off.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be like, read me a story, Clay.
Ooh, the Kukeri, that's fun.
Ooh. Clay is just reading his book now.
I am, yeah.
Quiet.
You guys are still here?
Quiet air. Like, oh, sorry.
Speaking of the end of the year, I think this is most likely going to be our last show for the end of the year.
Yeah. Shit.
So we can take off some time for Christmas and whatnot. But while you are waiting for us to come back, I recommend heading over to patreon.com/thepenskyfile, joining the Patreon, where you can catch up, if you haven't already, with our coverage of Stephen King's Second String, which will be rounding out in December with Stephen King's It from 1990.
Yes.
As well as taking a little bit of a look back on the movies we have watched and talking about what we're going to be doing next year, which is covering some movies off the Video Nasties list.
Oh boy.
Of banned films in England from the 80s. So this is the end of our second year. Is that true? No, third year.
I was going to say I'm pretty sure it's third.
Third year, because we've done...
We started...
What year is this? 2022? Yeah, we started during the pandemic, right?
Yes.
Or just before it started?
We started just before. We only did a couple together in person, and then we had to do them remotely from our houses.
It must have been in January, right? No, because we've done...
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. We only started doing Patreon last year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's only been two years of Patreon coverage,
right. Okay.
but we did a year of the standard show first.
Yeah. Wow, 3 years.
Yeah. Time is a mystery to man, Fry.
Yeah, 3 years, and we haven't even done 100 movies yet.
We're going to be doing this until we die.
Yeah. Listen, I'm on my third Star Trek series. And all of those, fourth Star Trek series. And all of those series have 7 seasons, and all of those seasons are like 25 episodes long.
You're never going to get away from podcasting.
No. Yeah, I'm going to... If I die on mic, I hope they still publish the episode.
You want to write that down?
Unless I say something really dumb. And so I've hit the randomizer button. Beep, boop, boop, beep, beep, boop, boop, beep, boop. And we will be starting our 4th year with number 47. Which, if you had to pick what number 47 on the 200 greatest films of all time list without looking at my computer screen, what would you guess it would be? Because I don't think you're going to guess it. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying it's surprising.
I'm trying to think like what in the vein of like Hereditary we haven't done yet. What is like Midsommar? Have we done Midsommar yet?
We have not.
Is it something like that?
No.
Oh.
It is Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I watched that, and it's been a while, so I'm interested to revisit and see if it deserves to be Number, what did you say, 47?
47. Yeah. It's good. Like, I saw it in the theater. I remember saying it was really good. I don't know if it's 47 good.
Yeah.
But, we'll find out.
I'm still just waiting for us to hit A Tale of Two Sisters. It's just the one I'm...
That's Dickens, right?
No, it was his cousin. His cousin from
okay.
South Korea.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Drag Me to Hell.
Anyway, yes. Drag Me to Hell will be kicking off
It's
our...
the theme for
2023.
2023.
Yes.
Drag Me to Hell.
Drag Me to Hell, please. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you for supporting us for going on 4 years now.
Yeah, wow.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Clay.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year. We will see you in 2023.
Happy New Year, everybody.